Sorry about that, guys. My other computer is set up downstairs sometimes has problems. So that's all I can say at this point. Let's see how much of our progress was wiped. Well, it doesn't say the life to come, so yeah, look at that. We lost almost no progress. I love how Logos continuously updates and saves. So again, I apologize for that, guys. That was not the goal, but it happens. So I'm just going to start bringing up those monographs again. And I had done a fact book, I remember that much. On heaven, okay, that's saved. All right, I didn't lose hardly anything. Again, I apologize for that. My computer downstairs is having issues, so it's okay. We'll go with this setup for right now. So what I need to do in this portion is I really need to make some better progress on what is the life to come, what does it look like, and trying to develop those ideas. So, oops, I don't want to do that. So I'm digging into just general resources that I can use on the topic of heaven. And you can see here, there's several good ones. Your stereotypical visits to heaven and back. D.L. Moody wrote a little book on heaven. You should check that out. In the Heavenlies. The Heavenlies, a commentary. Ooh, this looks good. Heaven, Finding Our True Home, 8 studies. These little study guides are usually very helpful because they're quick and to the point, right? So it helps you to get to some ideas. Like, and these ones are going to be perfect. They have some nice cross references that I can go chase after. Tasting Heaven on Earth. Let's just try that. Answers to Common Questions About Heaven. That's worth looking into. Everything the Bible Says About Heaven. That seems good. A New Heaven and New Earth, Reclaiming Biblical Eschatology. That seems helpful. Heaven, Hell, and Purgatory. Answers to Your Questions About Heaven. Getting a lot of good ones here. So that's probably plenty. I probably don't need to be digging through more of these, although it's tempting to do so. You just don't have enough time, right? Here are some fact book ideas on heaven. Ooh, some cross references. I already have several cross references, but I could come up with some more here. Do not store up your treasures in heaven is an important idea. Matthew 6, don't store up your treasures on earth, but store them up in heaven, in contrast. Let's see, what else? 2 Corinthians 12, 2-4. Paul kind of describes heaven, but he says that he doesn't feel comfortable doing that. So 2 Corinthians 12, 2-4 might be a decent cross-reference. And these are just the sorts of verses that you're looking for to help flesh out your ideas. You know, you're going to preach primarily from the text, Mark 12, but these other ideas are going to be a part of what you end up preaching, right? So these are all about fleshing out ideas. Our citizenship is in heaven, Philippians 3:20-21. He entered heaven itself, Hebrews 9:24. So these are going to help us with a variety of ideas. Hold on one second, guys. My dog is being a problem. Hey guys, sorry about that. So, someone you know pops in, says, "How's it going?" I'm going good, someone. Going good. I'm making pretty good progress on this sermon so far. It's going to be on the resurrection, and I'm titling it Life to Come. My primary proposition is because the dead are raised, we ought to live, in all caps. And then I've got three main points I'm going to be getting after. The dead are raised, life to come. So this is going to be describing heaven a bit. And then God is life, emphasizing that aspect. So, yeah. My stream dropped earlier because my computer downstairs has some issues. So I had to move to this one. But I'm doing well. I'm doing well. And right now I'm doing research because this is going to be the hardest one. We don't know that much about heaven, right? We don't know much about the life to come. So I'm trying to get a good amount of information about it without going overboard. That's the idea. And in light of that, I've been trying to dig through my library to see what sorts of resources I have on the topic of heaven, because that's really where the rubber's going to meet the road. So I got some good cross references out of there. You know, Bible dictionaries often have some good information, so let's see. This is the Baker Encyclopedia of the Bible by Walter Elwell. Heaven, realm or realms designated by a Hebrew term used to represent the sky and air and also heaven. The form of the word in Hebrew is dual. Physical heavens as the firmament. In addition to atmospheric, stellar space, which ultimately embraces the universe. Okay. Heavenly bodies of the stellar heavens were viewed by the Hebrews as inexpressibly glorious manifestations of God's handiwork without having any power or vitality on their own. Okay. From the theological viewpoint, the most important use of the term heaven is its reference to the spiritual domain, the abode of God himself. Numerous passages of Scripture speak of God as the high and lofty one who inhabits eternity. Okay, so this is relevant. So I'm just going to take this down as a note. Baker Encyclopedia of the Bible. And it is that abode to which Jesus Christ said he was about to return. There is where the true tabernacle stands, of which the earthly tabernacle is merely a shadow. That abode of God was in view when the Apostle Paul wrote of the third heaven. As such, it is often seen as a synonym for God himself. Term heaven of heavens. Basic concept followed in the Greek view and coincides with the Old Testament view. Physical and spiritual heavens. Yeah, this is a little more detailed than I need. It's not bad information, but I need to know what heaven is like. You know what I mean? I need to get a sense of heaven in the general epistles, John's gospel, pictures of heaven, history of heaven, angels in heaven, heaven in the persecuted saints, the hope of heaven. So this might be helpful. These are individual essays on the topic. Heaven Here and Now, True Stories of God's Kingdom Here on Earth by David McLaughlin. Let's see. Of such is the kingdom of heaven, mustard seed leaven. So he goes through the parables of what heaven is like. Okay, so these are stories. Now, these might actually be really helpful because these are the sorts of illustrations that you can really get to motivate people and help people, right? So little stories of pictures of heaven on earth. So these ones are related to children. Just waiting for us to notice. Of such is the kingdom of heaven. Of such is the kingdom of heaven. Let's see the mustard seed one. Mustard seeds are small, but not exceptionally so, blah, blah, blah. Stannis the viewer says, peace be with you. And peace be with you, Stannis. Thanks for popping in. Appreciate it. Hope you enjoy your time. I'm just studying the topic of heaven because that's largely the direction my sermon for this Sunday is going to go. Titling my sermon for this Sunday, Life to Come. And so trying to dig into that topic a little bit. Stannis says, what state do you live in? I live in Colorado. How about yourself, Stannis? Man, cannot avoid the interruptions. Hold on one second, guys. That looks like spam to me. They can tell me about my student loans or my factory warranty that is up on my vehicle. Stannis says he lives in Minnesota. Very nice. I know some folks in Minnesota. A handful of friends I game with, and then some family members as well. Where in Minnesota? I've only been to Duluth. Stannis asks, "What is your church like?" Our church is relatively small. We're a Baptist church, but we're not super fundamentalist. In fact, we're probably more in line with your standard non-denominational churches of today's day and age. And so, yeah, we're kind of non-denominational. Lots of families, lots of young families, and not massive. Less than 100 people each day. Probably 50 to 70 people on any given Sunday. So, small little church. Stannis says, I'm in Thief River Falls. Very cool. I don't know where that's at. Thief River Falls. All right, while this book is interesting, it doesn't, the information in it's not helpful like I would like. It's a lot of stories, which are, like I said, interesting, but I'll go digging through that if I'm really needing to look for illustrations. Let's try Heaven, the Heart's Deepest Longing by Kreeft. Our Society's Silence, History of Hope, Two Modern Idol Kingdoms, Deathly Consequence. This seems very good. In fact, he just reminded me of an idea that should probably go in the sermon. Something along the lines of, we desperately long for heaven, while simultaneously denying it. So you get a lot of people who will live their lives as though heaven, and as though they're searching desperately for heaven, and yet they're going to say things like, oh, heaven's not real and things like that, but they so want it to be real. So I'm just going to put this down here as a potential idea. Doesn't mean I have to use it, but it's an option. Beginning of the quest, heart's hunger for heaven. What do you want? Our universal unhappiness. This looks very interesting. I like the idea of Kreef's book here. No one is really happy here. In pursuit of happiness, which the American Declaration of Independence declares one of our inalienable rights, is in fact the silliest and surest way to unhappiness. This is not a wisdom we like to hear, and for that reason we had better give it extra hearing. Kreeft is excellent. Very, very insightful stuff here. Very, very insightful. No one is really happy. The phenomenon is universal, not peculiar to some temperaments, for it is not a matter of temperament or feelings. Beneath this surface, beneath the waves of satisfaction alternating with dissatisfaction of surface desires, the deep hunger of the heart remains unsatisfied. When life is full of fears or sufferings, if it appeared mainly at such times, we might dismiss it as escapism. But it is precisely when life treats us best that the deepest dissatisfaction arises. As long as we lack worldly happiness, we can deceive ourselves with an if-only syndrome. Yeah, I really like this point. I'm going to grab it. Stannis asks, is heaven about happiness? I don't think it is, but I think what Kreeft is getting at here is that in our search for, I don't know if he would say we're searching for heaven or we're searching for happiness, but in our search for happiness, let's say, we don't actually find the happiness and we just demonstrate that we're lacking. So these are really good ideas. This is going to be an excellent book on the topic because it's going to get at the heart of the matter when I'm discussing the life to come. So that's a good one. I'm not going to go into more depth in this one yet, but I'm going to keep this book open. In fact, I'm going to save it to my taskbar up here because that's a good one. I'm going to get rid of this other one. No time for dross. There's too much good stuff. Heaven, where it is, its inhabitants, and how to get there from D.L. Moody. Doesn't look like a consistent table of contents in this one. Seeking a better country, thoughts of home. Let's look at some of the highlights here. You know when a man is going up in a balloon, he takes in sand as ballast, and when he wants to mount a little higher, he throws out some of it, and then he will mount a little higher, he throws out a little more ballast, and he mounts still higher, and the more he throws out, the higher he gets. And so the more we have to throw out the things of this world, the nearer we get to God. Let go of them. Let us not send our hearts and affections on them, but do what the Master tells us. Lay up for ourselves treasures in heaven. This is a nice illustration. I don't know if I'll use it, but it's worth putting down just in case. It's kind of in this stage that we're just gathering data, right? We're gathering data, gathering information, and we'll start to piece this together in a coherent message as we move along. Let's see other highlights here. As men grow in knowledge, they vie with each other more and more in the making of their homes attractive, but the brightest home on earth is but an empty barn compared with the mansions in the sky. My friends, let us believe in this good old book, be confident that heaven is not a myth, and be prepared to follow the dear ones who have gone before. Thus and thus alone can we find the peace we seek for. You know what I just thought of? I should grab some quotes from Stott and Blanchard on the topic of heaven. Death and heaven. Death shortens our way to heaven, but grace sweetens our way to heaven. Anonymous. Death for the Christian is not a miserable cul-de-sac, but a glorious open road into the presence of God. Death does not put our relationship with God into the past tense. When death strikes the Christian down, he falls into heaven. That to which we react with natural sorrow is something to which God reacts with supernatural joy. Death to a saint is nothing but the taking of a sweet flower out of the wilderness and planting it in the Garden of Paradise. Now, is my message going to be anything about death? I don't think so. I mean, I've got the idea that the dead are raised. Well, it might if I'm focusing on the fact that the dead are raised. In fact, this reminds me of another idea, and I can transition this way. This is not merely a theological and abstract concept, but it affects how we live. Do you fear death? See, this is a good idea because up until now I've been treating it kind of abstractly and theologically. The dead are raised, there's a life to come, God is life. But here, these quotes from from Blanchard, remind me that this is a real truth that affects how we live. It's not just a concept, right? And so I think that's essential to grab. It is no credit to your Heavenly Father for you to be loath to go home. That's interesting from Thomas Brooks. We're so afraid of death, we're loath to go home. Death is but a passage out of a prison into a palace. Death is not a descent, but a never-ending ascent into the larger spaces and the fuller delights. Ooh. Death is not a descent, but a never-ending ascent into the larger spaces and fuller delights. That's an interesting idea. I've not heard that before. I'm going to throw it in there. Again, just collecting information. You end up throwing out a lot of what you collect in the sermon preparation process. This world is the land of the dying. The next is the land of the living. Ooh, I don't even know who Treon Edwards is, but that's fantastic. This world is the land of the dying. The next is the land of the living. That'll preach really well. Billy Graham, I've talked to doctors and nurses who have held the hands of dying people. They say there is as much difference between the death of a Christian and a non-Christian as there is between heaven and hell. To the Christian, death has redemptive significance. It is the portal through which we enter the presence of our Lord. The grave has a door on its inner side. Death to a Christian is a putting off of rags for robes. First infancy dies, then childhood, then youth, then manhood, then old age, and then we make an end of dying. Someday you will read in the papers that D.L. Moody of East Northfield is dead. Don't you believe a word of it. At that moment I shall be more alive than I am now. That's an interesting one. D.L. Moody. I love it. Gotta love it. Death is that delightful moment when the friendly flood heaves beneath the freed keel and the prow is set straight and finally towards the shore of home, and the pilot stands on board, at length seen face to face. That's a good one. But here's the problem with it. We don't use, nobody knows boat terminology in today's day and age, right? You start speaking like this with a quote, I mean, it's neat, but it's old fashioned. People aren't going to understand if you start talking about boats. Shall I be afraid to die when in death I commend my soul to such a sweet Lord and go to my husband and to my king? The belief that we shall never die is the foundation of our dying well. The belief that we shall never die is the foundation of our dying well. That's helpful. The dust of a believer is part of Christ's mystic body. Okay, so I got some good quotes. None of these tell me what heaven is like. I honestly, guys, I feel like that's going to be the hardest thing to discover. Let's desperate times call for desperate measures. Let's do a much deeper search. So let's search my entire library for heaven near, let's see, maybe heaven near kingdom. So we can relate the kingdom of God and the kingdom. Oh, way too many results. There's no way I'm going to be able to sort through all this. Guys, turns out my phone call was not spam. But I can text that person back later. Okay. Yeah, this is just way too broad. So kingdom, and it's probably because like the kingdom of heaven is a common phrase that the Bible uses. So maybe not heaven near kingdom. What about heaven near? I'm gonna try weird words. Near material. Wow, you gotta be kidding me. There's no way. That's way too many results. Heaven near earth? No, that's not gonna work. That's gonna be way too many results as well. Yeah, that's insane. Let's go fact book. Man, there's just so many dictionary articles on it. Cultural concepts of heaven. This could be interesting. Library results. B.B. Warfield on heaven. Christ's prayer for his people. I pray not that you should take them from the world, but they should keep them from the evil one. Stannis asks, have you tried what is heaven like? It's a good idea. Let's see how it goes. What is heaven like? Ooh, 26 million results. Let's put it all in quotes. That way we only search this exact phrase. Ooh, Stannis, jackpot. What is heaven like? 74 results in 65 articles and 44 resources. That's helpful. So we've got Adrian Rogers' sermon. So let's pull that up real quick. Well, Adrian, what is heaven like? I don't know. You don't know. None of us know. Well, I don't know if that's helpful. The Bible says clearly we have some ideas, we have some illustrations, but it is the presence of all that is good, is the absence of all that is evil. It is all that the loving heart of God, the omnipotent hand of God, the omniscient mind of God can conceive. Put that together, and that is heaven. Okay. I mean, that doesn't hurt. That's okay information. I'm gonna start a new section here. What is heaven like? Adrian Rogers says all of this stuff. Let's keep going. Thanks for your help, Stannis. The Bible Guide. What is heaven like? Living inside of heaven, the writer gives examples of Christian behavior. Be forgiving, pure, harmonious, and serious about God. What is heaven like? It is ominous and scary, like Mount Sinai. No, heaven is like a perfect Jerusalem, teeming with life, justice, and joy. Don't miss out on this amazing offer. Okay, so that's just a broad idea. Let's try Bible's answers to the biggest questions. Boom. What is heaven like? Okay. All right, now we're on to something. Look at this. So this is a book by Norm Geisler called The Bible's Answers to 100 of Life's Biggest Questions. And so he's got like little chapters on each of these ideas. And here's part 5, question 37. What is heaven like? And he's got a ton of cross references in here, so this is going to be awesome. Questions about heaven and hell. There are scores of books about people's dreams or visions of heaven. Heaven is fascinating not only because of the mysteriousness of it, but also because everyone wants to go there. Although we are unable to wrap our limited minds around heaven, God has provided enough details for now. So let's go Norm Geisler. The Bible talks about 3 heavens. You know what? And that just reminded me. He makes a really good point about countless visit to heaven books and all of those sorts of things. That's worth mentioning, that a lot of people have written books that they went to heaven or they got to check it out or all that type of stuff. Keep clicking that on accident. So Norm Geisler, we have enough information. Bible talks about 3 heavens: the Earth's atmosphere, the stars, God's abode. David declares, the Lord is my holy temple. So I'm actually going to write that down real quick. 3 heavens. Oh, I don't like. There we go. 3 heavens. Atmosphere. Stars. God's abode. And that might be helpful because God's abode or presence with God, that might be what heaven's about, just being present with God. That might be the essential piece. Don't know for sure yet, but let's keep reading through this. David declares, the Lord is in his holy temple, the Lord is on his heavenly throne. God is infinite, but he dwells in the 3rd heaven. Heaven is also where Jesus sits at the right hand of majesty. Peter says Jesus has gone to heaven and sits at the right hand of God, with angels, authorities, powers being subjected to him. Heaven is a place of bliss, described as paradise in 2 Corinthians 12. It's a place for the departed spirits of believers, numerous texts. Paul describes heaven as being away from the body and at home with the Lord, 2 Corinthians 5. Okay, these are good summaries, and he gives a lot of texts which are helpful. So I'm going to grab all this. Very helpful from Norm Geisler at this point. Location of heaven is unknown. It's either a far corner of the universe or multidimensional world. Another amazing fact about heaven is that it's a place where there is no sin or death. People will no longer be given in marriage, which is part of our text that we're going to be going into. Oh, Stannis has given me some cross references. Luke 20, 35 to 36. Let me write these down. Luke 20, 35 to 36. Matthew 18:10. And Matthew 20:30. Thanks, Stannis. Appreciate it. Take all the help I can get. So Luke 20:35 to 36. But those who are considered worthy of taking part in the age to come, I like that, and in the resurrection from the dead will neither marry nor be given in marriage. So this is a correlated text to what I'm looking at here in Mark 12. They can no longer die. They are like the angels. They are God's children, for they are children of the resurrection. Matthew 18:10. See to it that no one despises one of these little ones. I tell you that the angels in heaven always see the face of my Father in heaven. Nice. And then finally, Matthew 20:30, two blind men were sitting by the roadside, and when they heard Jesus was going by, they shouted, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us. Are you sure it's 20:30, Stannis? That's the story of blind Bartimaeus, right? I wonder if Bartimaeus' story goes into more depth. Stannis says, oops, got to relook at that last one. No problem. Like I said, I appreciate the help. So, no issues for me there. Another amazing fact about heaven is it's a place where there's no sin or death. People will no longer be given in marriage, for Christ is the bridegroom, and believers will be forever his bride. Heaven is the final destiny of every believer in Jesus Christ. Christians are commanded to set their hearts and minds on heaven by storing up treasures in heaven, and will receive their eternal rewards and inheritance kept in heaven. Jesus said he is preparing many rooms in the Father's house for his followers. Sometime after the second coming of Christ, heaven, the holy city, will become the new heaven and new earth, and every believer will dwell in their physical resurrected bodies. Okay, all this is good information. So I'm going to take all this down. Application. Heaven is absolutely beautiful because an absolutely perfect and loving Savior dwells there and wishes to be reunited with you, his bride. Therefore, set your heart and mind on heaven. Very helpful. 2230 typo. No problem. So not 2030, but 2230. I've done that in the pulpit before, Stannis. I stood up in the pulpit. I told people to turn to a text, and that text didn't even exist. Yeah, that was embarrassing. And I couldn't find it either. I just had to skip it. Jesus replied, you are in error. You do not know the scriptures or the power of God at the resurrection. People will neither marry nor be given in marriage. They will be like the angels in heaven. Nice. Perfect. And it looks like he references Randy Alcorn's book on heaven several times, so I'm going to have to check that out. Okay, that was very, very helpful from Norm Geisler. Good information there. Let's continue with our search. Biblical Counsel, resources for renewal. This doesn't look like it's anything, but I'll bring it up just in case. Surprised by Suffering, R.C. Sproul. The author believes that suffering and dying are a vocation that humanity is called to, though only those who put their faith in risen Christ and sustain hope. Surprised by Suffering by Sproul. Let's check that out. Sproul, surprised. Surprised by Suffering, the role of pain and death in the Christian life by R.C. Sproul. Stannis says, it looks like you have Matthew 22:15 to 33. Yeah, it's just overlap, right? I also have Luke 20:20 to 40. Yeah, exactly. But I didn't have 18:10. And there's Matthew 18:10. Very nice. So, suffering, perplexity, and despair. The final calling, dying in faith, after death. Speculations on life after death. Look at this. I never even would have found this if it wasn't for that review. Speculations on life after death, Jesus in the afterlife, to die is gain, a vision of things to come, conclusion. This looks like it could be a great book on this topic. Surprised by Suffering by R.C. Sproul. Not the sort of title of a book that you would think would tell you anything about heaven, right? Very, very intriguing. Man, jackpot is right, Stannis. Your search has found us several good resources. Let's check out Bibliotheca Sacra 170, Heaven Revealed. This is a journal article. Oh no, it's another book review. Let's see if I have this book. Ends, Heaven Revealed. No, no, I don't have it. No problem. Can't have all of them. Can't win everything. Bible promises when followers of Jesus Christ die, they'll be in heaven for eternity. But what is heaven like? Will believers know each other? Will we have physical bodies? What will we do? Blah, blah, blah. This book shows how believers whose believing loved ones have died can have comfort from the scriptures. The book is packed with scripture. And unlike some books on heaven, this one does not veer into conjectures, but sticks with what the scriptures teach. Oh, let's see. Hold on, I got to check the chat out here. Stannis says, I'm still new in my faith, and I read read the Bible in 2018 for the first time from cover to cover. So I still have a lot to learn. I was called in 2014 by Jesus, still looking for a church. I enjoy watching this process for sure. Oh, awesome, Stannis. Yeah, let's see. I was saved probably in 2010 or so. Pretty close to there. Maybe a little before that. 2008 or 2009 is probably when I was saved. And I started studying the Bible a lot, and I've always loved preaching and teaching. And so I started going to, long story short, I started going to school for it and all that type of stuff. And now I'm a pastor here of our little Baptist church in our town here in Colorado. So it's kind of a long journey. I could talk for hours about it, but long story short is I wasn't raised in church and I didn't know any of that stuff. And I just kind of kept digging into things. And even what I'm doing right now, I I know this isn't riveting content, right? It would be a lot more interesting to watch somebody blowing up zombies or something, right? Um, but the fact of the matter is that I would be doing this anyway on my computer by myself because I have to preach a sermon on Sunday. And if I can stream it and I get one or two people pop in and they're interested, then awesome. That's all I'm looking for. I'm not going to get super huge doing Bible studies or sermon preparation on here. But yeah, if you're interested, I'm happy to interact and work together. So appreciate that. Stannis says, "No, I'd rather watch this." I think you're in the minority, Stannis, but I appreciate that. I'm glad that you like that and that you don't want to watch zombies. That's funny. Okay, so I don't have this book by ends. Ends comments. See, this is important to me in this process because I'm trying to demonstrate that there's continuity between this life and the life to come. And here, Ends comments on the fact that continuity will exist between the earthly kingdom and the eternal state. In chapter 7, he comments on the fact that the present earth will be renovated, not annihilated. See, this is all very important. Ends on heaven. I wonder. I'm going to put all this down because I may not need to read the whole book and can just pick up some highlights. Ends. Heaven. Let's see. What does he call Heaven revealed? And I really like this idea of continuity. I think a lot of us tend to think of Christianity as just waiting to die and go to heaven, right? And in reality, the process of the new heavens and new earth begins now, in Christ now. Continuity will exist between the earthly kingdom and the eternal state. The new earth will be productive, peaceful. God's original purpose for the earth will be fulfilled. This is all great stuff. The new heavens and new earth are frequently pictured together. Since God dwells with man on the new earth, and since God's home is in heaven, the new earth becomes part of heaven. It will be like Eden, in which deserts will gush with water and animals will be peaceful. Yeah, I really like that. So I'm definitely going to mention some of this stuff. Stannis gives a couple more cross references, Luke 16 and Luke 23. You know what's funny? Luke is the one gospel I've not ever read much of. I've read a decent chunk of Matthew. John is one of my favorite gospels, and I'm preaching through Mark right now. But Luke is the one gospel I haven't spent a lot of time with, just a little bit here and there. Luke 16:19 to 31. Do I have that one? No, I don't. And Luke 23:43. Perfect. Luke 16. Yep, the parable of Lazarus and the rich man. That's a very interesting one because it mentions Abraham's bosom. That gives us some ideas. There might be more detail in terms of the afterlife there than in many other passages. And then Luke 23:43, yeah, the thief on the cross, which is excellent as well. And even just that phrase, paradise, is insightful, right? Paradise. Today I will be with you in paradise. Stannis says, I was thinking of the paradise torment aspects. Yeah, absolutely. And you get that in the Abraham's bosom part as well. Okay. Well, Bibliotheca Sacra didn't lead us astray. Man, we're mining for gold with this search. Christianity Magazine, a child's view of heaven. A class of third graders from a school in Union City, Tennessee was asking this question: what is heaven like? One little boy wrote very diplomatically, heaven is where some very nice teachers and a nice principal will be found. Another child said, heaven is where you will get everything you want, but if you want too much, you might not go there. Fantastic. Then there was this one from a little girl who said, heaven should be the happiest part of my dead life. Very good. These are funny. You know what? I might just grab these. I don't know if I'll use them, but these are the sorts of things that will add a little humor to your sermon. People will laugh at them, and when you're digging into like a lot of details, it can be really overwhelming, and it can kind of slow people down quite a bit. And if you throw in some of these, thoughtfully during certain parts of your message, it will help people laugh, and it kind of refreshes them. So that's a good one from Christianity Magazine, 1990. Let's try a 1986 volume of Christianity Magazine. Heaven by David King, 1986. Stannis asks, why is this so fun? I don't know, Stannis. I'm glad you think it's fun. I like it as well. But I think you're in the minority on that one. I like the kid's statements. He says, yeah, they're great, right? Heaven is where you get everything you want, but if you want too much, you might not go there. Yeah, children are fantastic. That's pretty funny. What is heaven like? It is variously described as a house, a city, a country. It's also described as paradise, a beautiful garden. These are symbolic descriptions of a new dwelling place, whatever its appearance is. We're not so much concerned about what heaven will look like as we are about the living conditions there. 2 passages in Revelation tell us about that. He shall wipe away every tear. There shall no longer be any death, no mourning or crying or pain. The first things have passed away. The first things, that's interesting. The first things have passed away. They shall hunger no more, neither thirst, neither shall the sun beat down on them, nor any heat, for the Lamb is the center of the throne, shall be their shepherd, shall guide them in springs of water of life, and God shall wipe away every tear from their eyes. Stannis says, speaking of children, it looks like you have one on the way in the background. I told her to be discreet and careful because people could see her, and yet her pregnancy is very far along. She's due in like next week, so yes, she's quite far along. Stannis, thank you for noticing. She has our puppy as well. That's awesome. Stannis says, bless you and your family. Thank you so much, Stannis. I appreciate that, brother. Thank you. No more physical suffering of any kind, not even normal discomforts. Nothing to make us sad or cry. I mean, these are good verses. I'm gonna grab all of these. Again, might not use them, but I'm gonna grab them. These are just good reminders, good ideas, all of those things. Okay, like I said, a veritable gold mine. Christianity Magazine from 1986. This one is volume 1, or no, volume 3, number 1, as opposed to the last one was volume 3, number 2. So it's the January issue versus the February issue. Worshipping God Eternally, Sewell Hall says, "What is heaven like?" Bula, a neighbor, asked a member of our family. "Well, it is a beautiful city with a street of gold." "I don't like gold." "And what will we do in heaven?" "Why, we will sing God's praises forever." "I don't like to sing. I guess I don't care to go to heaven." I like this. These are some of our misconceptions about heaven that I don't think are helpful for people. So I'm going to grab that. A nice illustration, false conception of heaven. Because part of what I want to do in this sermon is develop in people a longing to go to heaven. That's a place they want to spend time. That's something they look forward to. Common ground, what all Christians believe and why it matters. What is heaven like? John Calvin once quipped that people were far more interested in what heaven is like than how to get there. Even today, many people seem to want fire insurance to escape from hell, but think little about what the afterlife may actually be like. So what is heaven like? We do not know as much as we would like to know. We know that Christ promised to prepare a place for us there. Our bodies will be raised. We go there to be with God forever. Because our bodies are going there, we know it's a physical place. We know God will be there, as will all of God's people from all times. Beyond these basics, we're left to conjecture. Heaven has been pictured as a promised land to which we are journeying, a homeland promised by God. It has also been viewed as a paradise, a recreation of the perfect Eden. We know it is like a great feast or banquet with all the celebration and intimacy that goes with that. However, we do not even know if heaven is up or out or right here on earth or in some parallel universe. It is a place to be sure, but we cannot pinpoint its location. We do know that it is everlasting, that we shall be in the presence of God, and it is a good place. Nice. Good summary there. Okay, moving right along. Discovering Christ in the Gospel of Luke. What is heaven like? Today speaks volumes. It tells us that as soon as this earthly house, this tabernacle of clay, is dissolved, we have a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. In that blessed state, in the place called heaven, we shall be with Christ. What is heaven like? Look yonder to the assembly around the throne. What are the joys, the feelings, their happiness? All is explained in this simple statement: they are with Christ. I like that. All is explained in this simple statement: they are with Christ. Very nice. Okay, continuing right along. Emmaus Journal, Volume 1. A book review. The Place Called Heaven by James Jeremiah. Let's check to see if I own this one. Jeremiah, Heaven. The Saints' Treasury. No. Although Answers to Your Questions About Heaven by Jeremiah David is one I've already pulled up. Okay, let's just review this journal article real quick then. How do we know that there's a heaven? Is it real or only a dream? What are the requirements? How do we get there? What is it like? Blah, blah, blah. Well handled in this fine devotional book by James Jeremiah, former president of Cedarville College. Oh, so it sounds like a nice little devotional, but probably not something that's going to dig into the theology of it for me. Stannis says, here, let me look. Stannis says, I imagine times when I was a child and went to places like the lake and the smell and the music and the food and everything was wonderful. However, I think heaven is even a high level of energy. Everything's always looks new, like for the first time, no longer suffering the fear of death. Yeah, Stannis, that's awesome. And that's what we want, right? We want to have a healthy hope of heaven. That's part of why Jesus tells us about heaven, so that we can have this this hope, this desire, this looking forward to something that he has for us, something that is very, very good. Yeah, I like the picture that you said there. I'm even gonna grab it. I may not use it, but this is the type of picture I want to paint for people. Having a high level of energy. Like I said, I might not quote this, but it's the sort of thing that it's painting the right picture. You see what I mean? And when I'm preaching, I want to be able to paint that picture for people. Everything looking new for the first time. Yeah, I like that. Santa says you can reword it or I can. No, it's the concepts that are important for me. I probably won't quote it, but I might like allude to it, if that makes sense. I might speak in that way, you know, because again, a lot of this we are just surmising. We don't know exactly what it's like, but it's these pictures, it's these feelings that we get from the contemplation of it that are helpful. Thanks for sharing. Fear fighters. Let's look at this one. Okay, not familiar with this book. What is heaven like? The atmosphere of heaven will be the essence of pure love because God is love. It will be filled with light. There's no darkness in him. Peace, joy, and righteousness will reign. The Bible does give us a glimpse. Spirit of God descending like a dove. Paved with gold. Let's see. Heaven is a place. The fearless life. Is it the same author? Yeah, this guy he's not big on fear. If there's anything he doesn't like, it's fear. Because every title of his book is about fear fighters, the fearless life. What is heaven like? Oh, I mean, you can't plagiarize yourself, or maybe you can, but those are the exact same pictures. What is heaven like? Revelation 21. Let's see, what is this from? God's Perfect Plan by Marnie Scheidler McKinsey. What is heaven like? Revelation 21, 3 to 8. First and most important, God will be there. Next, no cause for sadness or grief. I will make all things new. Yeah, so very similar. Stannis says, I just noticed the name of the program you're using. Is there some sort of deluxe package for it or something? I may want to get this. Yeah, Stannis, this is called Logos Bible Software. You can see real small up here in the corner, Logos Bible Software. And let's see, I can pull up a new tab. Open new tab. And if you just go to logos.com, it's logged in as me, but you can come here and they have, my recommendation is to get their base packages. So if you go view all base packages, and I'll just log off so you can sign out. So you can see what it would look like if you didn't have anything. You can get here, you can sign up, special offers, blah, blah, blah. But here we go, view all base packages. Their base packages are excellent. And also, if you're interested in getting it, you can use me as like a reference, and I think you'll get a discount, and then I'll get like a little kickback too. But getting started with Logos, there's basic, there's fundamentals. Here's your standard base packages: starter, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, portfolio, collectors. You know, and I'm not gonna lie, it is not cheap software at all. It's very expensive, but it's very powerful. You have to have a good computer to run it, but it's very powerful. And when you buy these base packages, you get so many books in there. So here's starter, for nearly 300 bucks. Comes with 315 resources. So if we go look real quick, what resources does it come with? It comes with the Christian Standard Bible, Study Bible. This is a great study Bible. Comes with the Life Guide Bible series, prayer series. Comes with the New Bible Commentary, the NBC. This is a fantastic single volume Bible commentary. It also comes with the American Standard Version, the ESV, so lots of different English versions of the Bible, so you can compare lots of English translations. Some basic biblical commentaries. Holman Concise, that's a good Bible commentary. The Bible Knowledge Commentary is excellent. That's a good 2-volume one, and the New Bible Commentary. So all of these are excellent. And then these How to Read series are really good. Trimper Longman has done quite a few of these. So these How to Read, those are some of the Old Testament ones. You get some dictionaries and encyclopedias, different devotionals, audiobooks. And so there's a good amount of stuff that's available to you, but it's also the software comes with so many nice collections and things like that. So the reason I'm able to use it as effectively as I am is because whenever I buy a book, instead of say buying it on Kindle, I buy it in Logos. And I tried to not buy anything unless it's in Logos at this point. And so that actually has benefited me a ton because I, most of my library is here in Logos now. I have very few physical books at this point, and it's so easy and nice to just like you've seen me here. I've done a search on my library for that phrase, "What is heaven like?" and I've got 74 hits in 65 articles in 44 different resources, and we have found great stuff for my sermon for this Sunday in a bunch of these random books. And so it's because I've cultivated such a large library that it's that effective. Um, Again, it's expensive software. It's not cheap, but it's very powerful, especially if you um, collect a fairly large library. Yeah, so Logos Bible software. Let's see. Good night, God. Nighttime devotions to end your day God's way. Oop, I just got a notification. What is it? Stannis the viewer is now following, and we get that awesome picture of Paul Washer standing behind the pulpit. Thank you, Stannis, for following. I appreciate that, brother. I've really enjoyed interacting with you this evening, and you've helped me a lot in the process of this sermon writing, so I really appreciate that. Thank you. All right. What is heaven like? No doubt most people, if not all, have wondered the same thing. It's hard to comprehend. Night doesn't exist there. In heaven, we will have no need for electric lights, lamps, flashlights, candles, or even the light of the sun, moon, and stars. Interesting. Sometimes you wonder, like, on these speculative ideas, right? Stannis says, what name should I use for reference with the program? I forget how I did it. I think I had to give my email. You know what? You have to give me your email. If you give me your email, and please don't feel obligated to do that, by the way, if you only just met me. um, but um, I think I sent their team the email of my friend, and they reached out to him individually and worked with him to select a base package. So that's how it went down. Um, so if you give me your email, I'd be happy to do it, but don't feel obligated at all. And you can go on there and poke around. The other thing is if you're a seminary student or if you're going to school for seminary or for theology, they give significant discounts. So, but you have to sign up for their academic program, right? So make sure that if you're going to school for any of this or even just taking some classes, make sure you look into the academic program because they give significant discounts. So Stanley says, I'll look over it and get back at you. Okay, cool. That sounds good. Um, and the other thing, I like your comment, but I like night. I actually agree with you. You know, the place that this author's getting this from, let's see who this is. David Cook. The place this author's getting this from, and David Cook's a good author, but it's from Revelation, right? And I'm sorry, but it's heavily symbolic language. I don't know that we can conclude, these ultimate realities about what heaven's going to be like based upon some of this heavily symbolic language, right? Then I saw a new heaven and new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. There was no longer any sea, right? There was no longer any sea. Are you going to conclude that there's no water there? I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people. He will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe away their tears, no crying or pain," etc. To the thirsty, I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life, and etc. It's in this context that it's essentially said that there's no longer any need for day or night, and God is the light. There's no longer need for sun or moon. And again, it's heavily symbolic language, so I don't know that we should conclude that there's going to be no night. So no need to fear yet, Stannis. We'll see when we get there, though. At times we may think that such a place sounds too good to be true. We may wonder, what's the catch? The good news is there is no catch. Awesome. God has promised that we will have the opportunity to spend eternity in a state of happiness in heaven. Very, very good. Okay. Well, Stannis, it's getting close to bedtime. Showing 8 p.m. We've made great progress tonight. I've got tons of notes, tons of ideas. Those main points are really starting to develop, and I appreciate interacting with you. Thanks for coming along, and thanks for the follow and spending some time together. I try to stream. I've been on and off, hit and miss in the past, but I'm really getting back into it this weekend. I try to stream weekly my sermon prep, so hopefully you can hit me up on that, and you can always message me. I know there's some links down below um, in the Twitch, so you can go down to some of those links and follow those, and you'll be able to get a hold of me, no problem. So anyway, I think I'm going to take off, Stannis. It was really good interacting with you. I enjoyed spending some time with you this evening. Again, thanks for the follow, and I hope you have a great night, a great rest of your week, and hopefully we can see more of you in the future. Anyway, thanks everyone. It was a good night and made really good progress on the sermon. Um, hope that you have a good week and that God blesses you. Stannis says it has been fun. God be with you and your family. Thank you so much, Stannis, and you as well. God be with you. God be with your family as well. Take care. God bless. Bye now.